Welcome to Creative Mornings. This morning's event is Spicy, chosen by our Tucson chapter. Is that how you say that? We don't know. Illustrated by Sophie McTeer. And I'm going to read out the blurb. Oh yeah, that's hot. When you're cooking, spices add flavour, depth and complexity to an otherwise plain culinary dish. Spicy foods interact with receptors in our mouth and can trigger sensations of heat and even pain. Can you handle it? Being open to trying new and bold tastes is a good lesson for bringing daring and originality into all of our creative endeavours. As they say, variety is the spice of life. Spicy can also be exciting and suggestive. A spicy comment or joke is provocative and controversial. Such spicy takes often challenge conventional beliefs and ignite strong, passionate reactions from people. So how can you make your work and approach to life spicier? Now I think this morning that's going to be answered for you. Is all I'm going to say. So yeah, if you'll indulge me for a minute or two, it is my last Creative Mornings as host. Can I get an oh. Thank you, too much. No, and I just kind of wanted to lament about my time here. I've kind of almost been host, I think it's 12 months, but actually just this is my 9th event, and it's been a very interesting experience for me. What I would say is that I've learned a lot, and I was quite naive when I took this on, and I thought that, not that it would be easy, but that it would be, I've been to Creative Mornings quite a lot, and as a participant, and I think when you become host, you take on such a lot, and I care so much about these events, and I want everyone to have a good time, and that was kind of manifested each event. What I tried to do was make it more diverse, more inclusive, and I'm really proud because I think I've done that, and I'm leaving it better than I found it in ways that it wasn't bad to begin with, but just in ways that I kind of wanted to open the creative community up. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you for anyone that's come to my event, that's sent messages, and basically all the team as well, so thank you very much. And in my last immortal words, I am never doing this. But you won't be sad for too long because we have new hosts. So we do have new hosts. We've got Harry and Lowry, both designers, both sat at the front. So and just make sure that you have a chat with them afterwards, because they're going to be taking the legacy on and doing a great job. I've got no doubt about that. So thank you both. Yeah. That was one of my fears, was when I left, that there wouldn't be anyone taking it on, and I'm really, really glad that these two are, because I think they're going to keep it alive, which is fantastic.
So can we just say thank you very much to you for doing it for this time, and we're really grateful to you and like everything you've done.
Oh,
we had a couple of things for you to say thank you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, that is so nice. The wonderful, the talented, the creative FooFoo Labelle.
made my day. I think I've peaked. That's
So have we, don't
Yeah.
there's nothing else that's going to happen as good as this today. So thank you so much for your lovely response, and actually just for getting up in the morning. I think it's incredible that you're here. I'm looking out thinking, oh yeah, it's actually 9 o'clock in the morning. So because we didn't go into this business for the early starts. Thank you so much. So my name's Stephanie Gawne, and I run Cardiff Cabaret Club, and I'm burlesque performer FooFoo Labelle. And I've been running Cardiff Cabaret Club since 2007. I come from a musical theatre background, so my training was at Arts Ed back in the day, and went off and did lots of kind of showgirl work and panto and summer seasons and kind of commercial theatre. And then very kind of, actually about the only logical thing I've done in my life was setting up Cardiff Cabaret Club, which was, I had a daughter of my own. I just budded her, and so I needed to create like an infrastructure around myself so I could keep working and creating and not kind of get a job at Tesco's. And actually, because I was on my own, I was able to put it on a kind of business-like footing, and just like run lots of classes, and then all the performers from the classes, all those dancers kind of performed in the shows, so it kind of became like a sort of little kind of revolving door of performers. And then so I'd do the classes and then do the shows, and you know, it's all worked brilliantly. I think I've produced 250 different shows in the last 16 years, and sort of created lots of different acts. And then of course, then as FooFoo Labelle, needed to, when I started doing Cardiff and when I started doing burlesque, there weren't many burlesque performers, which seems incredible because like now everybody's a burlesque performer, everyone. But I kind of thought, oh well, who should I book as a headliner? Oh, I don't know, can't be that hard, I'll do it myself. So I just kind of put a few acts together, and I think I've done like 25 different acts, probably more, because I've produced I've been in those shows at WMC, the Christmas shows, so we produced like work just for those shows as well. So you're kind of constantly, you know, doing acts. Yeah, so that's kind of a little bit about me and what I do, and I just thought, well, I just kind of hope that people might be interested enough to ask some questions, and we might sort of start a conversation rather than me just talking at you for another 10 minutes. So if anybody's got hands up, lovely.
Could you tell me a bit about like the history of burlesque and what it is?
Yeah. So so burlesque, there's quite a lot of very different schools of burlesque. So you've got this kind of American showgirl burlesque, which is kind of like the Dita Von Teese kind of idea, which is, I was saying to one of the colleagues earlier that worked in San Francisco, I took myself out and did a little tour, and a lot of the American burlesque is still very na-na-na-na-na, na-na-na-na-na, and in about 5 minutes, da-da-da-da-da, the glove's going to come off. So, and it's, you know, beautiful bejeweled costumes and what we call classic burlesque. There's quite a lot of classic burlesque happening there, and then that whole kind of bumps and grinds, you know, kind of like that kind of, it's all in a genre of classic burlesque. And then you get the neo-burlesque, which I kind of feel maybe comes more from a European background. Obviously now everything is everywhere because of like YouTube, everybody does everything. And I don't think those kind of lines are so defined. But I kind of feel like what we do in Europe and Britain especially maybe is more like neo-burlesque, and I feel like there's a lot of classic burlesque performers, but we've got that history of that kind of, that sort of slapstick history and that end of the pier kind of an entertainment, and more of that sort of carry-on kind of element to it. So I mean, the history of burlesque, I mean, I suppose we're talking variety shows and circus. So like in big circuses in America, you would have striptease artists in some of the smaller tents around, like you would have, you know, the mediums or other kind of special, you know, sort of special, not big tent acts, but you'd have probably have striptease acts in those type of things. And then, and then I think in the UK, if you think about like variety and that kind of background, you know, you would have those sort of dancers, and then strip clubs and pole dancing. So and all these elements kind of come into modern burlesque. It's like, so what I just did there, that was just an act I put together in lockdown for a Pride show, you know. It was just like, so yeah. It's a really big topic. It's a bit like saying, so kind of where does jazz come from? And you can kind of vaguely say, oh well, it's kind of from like Black Americans, but there's so many different elements coming into it.
FooFoo, I'm going to jump in here just to help
Okay.
with Q&A and stuff. But I think you missed the beginning, but it was like how can we spice up our lives?
Oh,
And
sorry, yes.
No. When this theme came
Yeah.
up, I thought of you
Thank
straight
you,
away
thank you so much.
because I've had very
Positive
intimate.
experiences.
Yes, I was saying. Yeah, very intimate kind of. You were there. I was here.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
There wasn't a lot to be.
There was a moment. But no, it was like, how can we inject spice into our lives? And I think when we see you perform, it looks very natural, like you've been doing it all your life. But if you've never done it before, how do you add that bit of spice? Like, how can you start? If we're all sat here now, what is one thing that we can do to get it spicy?
Okay. Well, I think it's how you view yourself, isn't it? So it has to come from within. And I've been through this kind of roller coaster emotionally in the last year, because I lost my mum, who was very poorly and then got very decrepit and then passed away. And so these kind of going through sort of grief and having to still be FooFoo Labelle going through grief is a really because it's just something I switch into, and I can feel. Actually, people have said you kind of get taller and you kind of ground yourself before you go onto stage. So I think there is just it's like there's a physicality. So we can all do a little bit of the physicality. Shall we all do it? Yes! Excellent. So let's roll out, let's sit up tall. So, there we go. So imagine you're sitting on your bum bones, if you know what I mean. So you're not sitting tucked under, you're sitting up nice and tall. And then we're going to roll the shoulders back. Okay. And can we stretch up to the ceiling? Are we all able? Yeah, perfect. And then we can put our hands, this is a great one just for life. Put your hands on your head. And now drop your shoulders. There we go. And now take your arms out in front. Imagine you're just putting your hands on like an imaginary door frame, but the door frame's not moving. So I know you're sitting together, so it's quite a narrow door, but not too narrow, you know. And then what we're going to do is just tack one shoulder and the other. Lovely, lovely. Tap, tap, tap. And then if you know where your breastbone is, it's that bony bit in the middle. You're just going to think about wobbling that. But you're going to keep thinking. Keep your hands on the door frame. Because otherwise we get disco gerbil. And what we want is just a little bit of there. Lovely, of course, Sam, it's beautiful. So another thing that I really feel now is I wasn't wearing pasties today because I just thought pasties are like nipple colours. I just thought this was wrong. But I kind of really think, especially now, that when I'm kind of quite hyperextending the top of my body, not on the bottom bit, but I'm here. So when I'm dancing, I'm kind of lifted up here. And so that's something that you can kind of think about, like just that feeling of like having something about yourself. You don't have to be, dressed in bejeweled in things, but it's just having that, it's confidence, I suppose,
yes.
in a word. But you're just feeling like you've got that. And I think if you're, it's great that we have, this kind of understanding between men and women now, and it's so much better than it was. But I still feel like we can all still feel kind of sexy, and we don't have to homogenize ourselves into this kind of uni person. We can, men can still feel masculine, or women can feel masculine, but we can all just have that kind of lift up about, so just like whatever you're wearing, whatever you're doing, just having that about you, but you can still have special items in your wardrobe that you like wearing that are a little bit special. What's quite fun about being a burlesque performer for so long is that I've got so many costumes, and it's quite fun to wear them out sometimes, if it's just like a little corset or the hat or little cut-off gloves or something. So just spicing up your life. Think about your posture. I mean, please think about your posture because it's not going to get better. So you've got, it'll only go worse. So you need to think about lifting up, but also think about what you're wearing, how you're carrying yourself, especially going into rooms of people. I mean, another one. I'm sure you all do it, but just kind of the power stance before you do anything. Just standing, before you go in for that interview or that audition, just having that stance. And then just so you want to be powerful. But you also want to kind of have it push on that.
Love that. Any questions?
Yeah.
I wanted to know, has burlesque changed your relationship with your body or your confidence in your body or confidence in general?
I think when I'm performing, it is like a superpower. I feel like really powerful. But before I was just performing as a burlesque performer, obviously I did a lot of musical theatre and like commercial theatre, but I did an awful lot of work. I used to live in Turkey, in Istanbul, and I used to work trained as a belly dancer. So I used to work a lot in restaurants and that kind of thing as well. So that, when you're working up close to people night after night in restaurants and people who are completely disinterested as well, or just trying to eat their hummus, and it's like, I don't know. You kind of, actually I was chatting to Sam once we were chatting about busking, and I think it's kind of the same idea. Sometimes when you're, sometimes you do some work which can seem a bit of a grind, but then you realise it's kind of taught you a lot about how to deal with people and performing, especially like in public as opposed to on stage with a kind of fourth wall thing. So with relationship with my body, yes, it has. I still feel like, I suppose I'm kind of a different generation, and we were kind of brought up to be just so hypercritical of ourselves. So just going to dance school in the 1980s. I'll leave it there. Discuss. There was it wasn't a boss, but so I still feel like in my 50s that I'm still having to sort of there's still demons to quell with that. So as a young dancer, as a teenager and as a dancer in my 20s, I had bouts of anorexia, and because you're constantly in leotard and you're not getting jobs because your hip waist ratio isn't the same, you're constantly being compared. But I don't know, that's kind of being a dancer. So yes, I am confident with my body, but that's my tool. Like if I was a singer, I hope I'd be really confident with my voice, because that's my tool. So I'm confident with my body and that I know what I can do. And I really, really, I'm being really honest, but I really try and give people as much body confidence as I can. And so say, I want to see all those different body shapes on stage, and I book my shows to make them as diverse in every single way as I can. If I'm complete, but we still, I think everybody still has those kind of niggles. So I feel very confident in I'm very happy to dance around in a thong and pasties. So I suppose that's confident, but there's layers, isn't there? There's layers, and if you peel it down, sometimes you're like, I don't know. And aging. Should I still be doing this now?
Yes.
That's a really interesting one. You kind of. I went to a reunion from college, a 30-year reunion, and it was, it's like literally, are you still doing this? Are you still dancing? Oh, well, I'm a Pilates teacher now. You know what I mean? There's still a lot of that. So that's kind of interesting.
Oh, Steph, you're super hot.
So, I think it definitely has helped my confidence. But then if I was a sheep farmer, maybe I would have had those issues in the first place. You know what I mean? So it's the whole thing. There's so much nuance to the whole kind of body image, issue anyway.
I'd love to see you in that outfit, sheep farming. You know what I mean? That would be kind of like gay militia sheep farmer.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And there's an act actually. One of my students is doing at the moment as a sheep, and then the whole thing kind of just. There's one strand and the whole thing gets pulled and the goes, which was I don't want to have to knit a costume every night, but that's a really good idea.
That's a good idea. We had a question. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, it's a double question. So what brought you to Cardiff, and what kind of challenges did you face opening? And was it the first burlesque capital, did you say?
No, there was a show called What the Butler Saw. I don't even remember What the Butler Saw, which was at the Minskis. And there was something really lovely about that, in that there was a team of, and they were all girls at the time, and so we're talking maybe 20 years ago now, or 19, yeah, that sort of time, and they used to show Minskis, and they used to set themselves a theme each month, and then work to that theme. And they'd do the show, and then poof, then that was that. There was like, now there's a kind of, everybody's quite precious about their routines. We spend a lot of money and time on our routines, and then they're like products, and we sell those products. You want freedom, you want the butterfly, you want Ursula, you want Lumi. I've got certain acts that I've spent money and time on, but there was a lovely kind of throwaway idea of doing something, performing it, and then poof, it's gone. And they used to do that, which I liked, but I realised I could do it better. And then I set up. So I came to Cardiff. I've got Welsh. I had some Welsh ancestors on my grandmother's from Larne, and I had when I moved to Wales, which was about 97. I still had relations living in sort of Gawne and there. So there's always been, like, I knew South Wales, and we've been here a lot on holidays. And then I came here with a musician boyfriend years ago. We split up and I stayed. So that's how it stayed.
Yeah, well, you may have kind of touched on this just then, but firstly I want to say I really enjoy the Christmas shows. They're really
thank you.
good, chaotic fun.
Yeah, thank you.
And I mean that's a compliment, not as a...
And
secondly, I went to Crazy Horse in Paris last year, and I was really struck by, coming back to what you were saying about A, how funny it was at points, but B, like how high the production values were. And like my partner at the time was joking that I seemed to be really obsessed with how much money they must have spent to make it, the rigging safe and the quick change, and like how incredible the amount of money they must have spent. And it made me think about maybe just what you were talking about, really, how the business of burlesque has changed. Because obviously that's a £1 million business, right?
Yeah, I think like places like Crazy Horse and there used to be a place called Nouvelle Eve and Moulin Rouge, you know, like their turnovers are massive. What's it, 90 quid a ticket?
Yes.
You know, and then you're paying like their bar prices, which are going to be hyped up. But then business is hard, and yeah, I think I sort of feel that there's no excuse not to have high production values. I don't think, and that's not a massive cost. Once you've got your lights, you've got your PA, there's things like they'll have moving, you know, but actually if you look at like some of the West End shows, actually those shows are they're in situ and they're there for decades, which the West End shows aren't, you know, necessarily, you know, unless it's the mousetrap. So I sort of feel like it's probably a good investment to make, and I kind of feel like there's an expectation that if you're doing like a sharing or you're doing some sort of scratch like that, that's very different. But I sort of feel like this is why I've really enjoyed producing shows. I've always try to make sure I have sidelights. I always try to make sure, you know, like I put my performers in the best, want to show them in the best possible light. And I just think that that's kind of like, if you know your shit, that's easy to do. You should be doing that. So I don't. Yeah, it's business. It's big business.
And that kind of filters down through from.
It does filter down. It does, and in the cabaret burlesque world now, there's a real hierarchy in the performers, and even with everything I do, because I've kind of refused to really go out of Cardiff because I was being a single mum and I've stayed here. I'm on the sort of mid lower level of the headliners. I'm nowhere on the, you know, I could travel to the arse end of wherever and not get more than 200 quid for my performances, even though I've been a performer for this long and I've got, you know, kind of quite high caliber performances, just because I'm just not in that world.
Yeah.
And so some of the big names that I'm bringing down to Cardiff, like when I was doing all those shows last year at the WMC, we had like 2 shows every month. You know, I was able to give them, you know, we bring down headliners who are like 400 quid a night. Well, you know, to a degree, that's kind of not the game I'm in. I don't want to be doing like Scunthorpe and then Liverpool, and then I don't really want to be doing that kind of work. Really, what I want to be doing now is kind of trying to create sort of full solo shows about sort of, you know, different things that interest me, as opposed to just doing acts in a show and producing shows.
Interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, just want to say that's probably the best start to a working day ever. Yeah, I was just wondering, you kind of touched on it a bit when you said like, you know, how to spice up your life, but I guess like how do you hype yourself up before a performance? Like, what are your sort of confidence tips? Or maybe you just can just walk in and do it. I don't know.
Kind of, I think it's knowing your material, isn't it? I think like when you know what you're doing, then that's, I've done this routine quite a few times. This isn't a kind of, I mean, who knows who's in the audience, maybe this is my time, but it's kind of, you know, it's kind of it feels like a nice relaxed gig, and I can just kind of pull it out of the bag. Stretching, that's my go-to every time. Can I still do this? Can I still do this? Is this going to work? And especially being older and like now, kind of through the menopause, all my ligaments have kind of shortened. So yeah, needing to stretch, and I do like sing and fling, and that for me, because I'm not, you know, I've done musical theatre, I've done a lot of singing, so like if I'm doing sing and fling, I'm for hours before, right up till I walk in the door. Is it still? I'm going. What can I still? Is it still? So that's but I love it. But that for me is more sort of it's knowing your material. I don't really get nervous with stuff. I know if I'm doing stuff and more spoken word stuff, then I get more nervous. But when it's physical, because that's been my language, I don't really get nervous. If I know what I'm doing. There's one routine I've got, I don't know if any of you have seen, I've got a great big light up costume and I'm a robot and I do like robot rock. It's massive. And it's the most temperamental costume and that makes me nervous just getting it out of the garage. It's like, oh, what are you going, you know, because it's just a really temperamental costume. But, you know, in Charlotte, if everything goes fine, then there's no reason. If you know what you're doing, the audience are your friends, right? So you just get on and do it.
Yeah, you're just so good with audiences, aren't you? I mean, I've seen you, same as Neil, like Christmas shows, and you bring people on stage, and you get people, those like the aerobics instructors you're doing, and how do you deal with like, if the audience is just like, how?
Well, then you can be like, you're getting paid, so it's fine. You don't have to, do you? So no, and I think that's what the belly dancing taught me, because some people won't look at you. You can be like, and they're just like, I'm getting their phones out and going off. If you've got a microphone, you can just say, you know, I've got the microphone, you lot can shut up. And if you have, you know, there is that, well, especially cabaret, it's 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? You know, so you can deal with most things for you can deal with most things for like more than 5 minutes, can't you? So 5 minutes is fine. So it's not for everybody, you know, it's still a niche art form. Some people don't, you know, this is why it's all about context, isn't it? And actually today, that's why I thought I won't put pasty, because I thought, you know, I don't know if there's going to be lights, I don't know what the situation is. So it's all about context of like, you know, sometimes you do like WIs or something, and you're like, oh my God, can we just take the lights down a bit? In these kind of like brightly lit sort of working men's clubs, and it's like, oh, this is not doing anybody any favours. So I think context is king for burlesque and cabaret. And the audience, you get that, you know, in places like the Christmas shows, you do get people wandering in and they haven't got, oh, actually we did a lovely show before in the cabaret in WMC, and we had this group of people for our winter show, and they turned up elderly, like 80s, 90s, and they thought it was a pantomime. and it was so delicious. We had Lily Snatchcrag and Mark Anthony as our headliners, who were drag performers, and Mark Anthony is a trans drag performer. And they'd never met, and they were having these conversations, and you just thought, this is, afterwards, it was just brilliant, because you thought, these women would never have met a trans man ever before with sort of, scars and all, and they were having a conversation, and Mark was so lovely, he was explaining to them, and I really love that. That's what I really love about Cardiff Cabaret Club, and this is why FooFoo Labelle tries to stay really apolitical, because I just really love getting everybody in the room, and I love the fact that we do get, and I just like, because I feel like sometimes we get ourselves in smaller and smaller boxes, and then everybody is the enemy. And actually, as humans, we've all really have the same kind of wants in our lives. And I feel like and I just love getting just clutching everybody together, whether they're Tories or Labour or whatever. And I know they're out there. And I love the fact that they're all watching the show, and all the genders and all the sexualities, and I think that's kind of my soapbox thing. I think there's more that brings us together than takes us apart, and I really think it's important that we keep a conversation going between us, because it gets very easy to say, oh well, it's because they're that type of person, or that's because they vote this, or because, and I think that's really. It just doesn't move us forward as a society. So in my little way, I feel like with Cardiff Cabaret Club, I've really tried to mix it up as much as I can. I think it's just, and also, they all buy tickets. Everybody buys tickets.
Can you tell us about the, I've forgotten what it's called, your event in chapter?
Yeah. So we've left some flyers somewhere. I think Julie's got some. I'm hosting. I'm one of the producers. Well, I'm the main producer, but I don't really do very much work because my co-producers are so good. The Wales Burlesque Festival at Chapter, which is a 4-day festival in August bank holiday, so the last bank holiday in the summer. And we've got 4 nights, and we've got Big Diff Energy on the Thursday night, which is all local performers, and then we've got on the Friday night we've got Future Icons competition, which is hosted by Mercury, who is also known as Pie the Mime, who's obviously they're not in their Pie the Mime persona, otherwise they couldn't host. Otherwise, so Pie's hosting as Mercury, and then on Saturday night we've got a big gala performance, and on the Sunday night we've got Sunday Speakeasy, which is kind of jazz and sing and fling and that kind of idea. It's huge. We were meant to be running it at the WMC last month, but the WMC decided to go dark, didn't they? So I'm now self-producing it in Chapter, which actually is better because our line of sight, so it's going to be much better. We've got the bigger breakout spaces as well, so that's fine. The more worrying thing is we're having to actually pay for it ourselves. And there's lots of workshops. So you can do sing and fling workshops, so singing and taking your clothes off at the same time. We've got Leighton Reese from the ballroom community doing a ballroom workshop. We've got tassel twirling workshops.
On your boobs?
On your boobs or on your bottom, because that's another thing. That's another thing. You can have them wherever you want to, really.
True.
Armpits. What else have we got? We've got eight workshops. We've got a sort of kind of Dr. Sketchy type event, so we'll have a performer performing and then doing life modelling. So that'll be on the Sunday. It's kind of huge. It's kind of like, oh gosh, what have we done here? So come along, and that will be in Chapter, and there'll be sellers and stuff.
Amazing. Can I have a huge round of applause?
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love talking about myself.